In this video, you'll hear me refer to the word accountant over and over again. And we want to be clear that my guest, Sherlynn Davis, is not a CPA, but she is a business analyst and an enrolled agent. She offers tax preparation and accounting services to families and small business. We're going to talk a little bit about taxes and how it relates and possibly could relate to families who have children and adults with developmental disabilities or disabilities. And so thank you and welcome, Sherlynn, with us. And thank you for being with us today. And you are so busy. So I just appreciate your time during this very hectic tax season.
Yes, definitely. It's my pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about accounting in general and why a family might need an accountant that has special knowledge of disability, special needs, etc.
Yes, so the accounting field basically encompasses a lot of different moving pieces, working with businesses to make sure that their expenses, their liabilities, their assets, all of those things are being accounted for. But as it relates to what I do more specifically, I work more so with individuals as an enrolled agent. I'm an enrolled agent authorized to practice before the IRS. In all 50 states. I work primarily with taxes with individual families. And so that process is just, being able to look at a family, not just now during tax season, obviously I'm helping families with their returns, but also looking at it going forward to say, these are some areas where you could be, saving more money throughout the year that you're able to earn interest on. And those things can help as families are, looking towards the future. So primarily I'm doing, those services now within, my particular firm.
And so, Sherlynn, you specifically, I mean, you work with all types of families, but it sounds like you have more of a strategic approach. So it's not just, I'll do your taxes once a year. You really counsel families for what they might be considering as potential expenses, et cetera, that could help that bottom line.
Yes, definitely. As a special needs mom myself, my son is 17, he has autism. I actually started off my career as an educator. I was a teacher for 20 years, a special education teacher, incidentally, and did that for 20 years. And then went back to school. I became a lot more interested in finances as my son got older and just thinking about, the implications of that and what's going to happen with us. When we, myself and my husband, are no longer able to care for him, whether it just be, that we're elderly, we're going to get there, we're all going to get there someday, what's going to happen with him? And my thing was that the more equipped we are financially to leave a legacy for him, the better off his future is going to be. So that is what sparked my interest. I went back to school, got a master's degree in business analytics, and then became an enrolled agent because I wanted to not only help my situation, but other families who were in the same scenario as we were. So yes, when I meet with a client, whether they're a special needs family or not, I'm always looking at how could they have structured this better, so that they could have retained more of their money throughout the year. Because honestly, a big return is, it's great. It makes us happy when we see those big numbers. But ultimately, the goal is to not see so big numbers, at the, during tax season, but to be able to take advantage of that money throughout the year as you need it. For things that you need, right then, but also to save whatever excess you have because it can be earning interest. So yes, I definitely am a big proponent of helping people look forward, not just now, but what's going to be best in the overall picture.
So thinking about some of the things that as families were concerned about, Let's talk about SSI and SSDI. So,
Mhm.
our family members, as they become adults, will receive SSI or perhaps SSI and SSDI. And then we receive from the Social Security Administration at the end of the year the statement of how much funds were received, et cetera. As family members, what do we need to be aware of in terms of tax implications? Are there any?
Yes. So with SSI, SSI is not taxable. So when they get those statements, those are things that if you get the SSA 1099, that your accountant would be including on the return, but it's not going to affect, your tax situation at all. It's not taxable because it's based more so on the income and the financial need of the family, versus the SSDI, which can be taxable depending on where that individual is. So if their combined income, which is their adjusted gross, in addition to 50% of that Social Security income, if that gets above certain thresholds based on the filing status, then that's when it can become taxable, either 50% of it or 85% based on the threshold. So they're looking at half of the Social Security disability income, but they're also looking at the earned income that was in addition to that to determine whether or not they're going to tax it or not. So,
And I know that each case is so individual, but as families, then we do or do not count that as a part of our overall income? Or is that something that you can even talk about, or is that individual case by case?
yes, so it definitely depends on the situation. So if
Okay.
you are claiming, which I would assume, claiming your young adult or your child, depending on the situation, as a dependent, of course, you get their deduction for them being a disabled dependent, even if they are an adult. You're going to get that benefit going forward. But their individual, you still can file another return just based on them. They can file their own return. So you would list them as your dependent. Their income, their Social Security income, doesn't have to be included in yours just because you're filing them as a dependent. They can file their own return, especially those adults who are earning a little bit on the side. Like there are a lot of families that come to me and their young adult has maybe a little job, where they work at the grocery store, they work somewhere, then they can file their own return. They typically don't get large returns back, but they get a little something, that they can use and then have or save. But the family can still take them as a dependent, even if they file their own individual return. So it's very family specific. So I don't want to say, do one way or another, but it just really depends on how much they have coming in, how much you have coming in, as to whether you want to carry them or not, because your tax bracket, based on your earned income is also going to be affected. And it's also going to determine which is going to be the best route for you to take to limit your tax liability.
Okay. So a lot of us, let's just go to, since we're in tax season,
Mhm.
let me just ask specifically about that. If a family thinks that their taxes may be a little bit complicated in that way, can they file their own taxes? Is that something that you might or might not recommend?
Yeah, so I would definitely get help,
Okay.
especially, with a lot of the situations where if you're unsure. And I say this um, because a lot of tax preparers or accountants, it's not as expensive as one would think. Okay. Um, Plus, they just have the knowledge because it's something that we're doing all day, every day, you know, that will keep you out of trouble. Nobody wants to be audited, and the IRS doesn't audit a lot of people. Their audit rate is like 1%. However, you still want to be doing things correctly, and you want to make sure that you're maximizing your benefit. I mean, just to be honest, um, if the situation is really simple, then maybe you might want to go at your own, but I would still recommend using at least a software program, such as, a TurboTax or something. Though those types of programs, they're not necessarily going to give you those specific instructions as it relates to your special needs child and certain deductions and credits that you could benefit from. But at least it gives you a little layer of support where you don't feel like you're having to, get all these forms and papers and come up with these figures on your own. So long answer, but my recommendation would be to not go it alone. At least at minimum, get a little software program.
Okay.
But definitely if your situation is a little more complex, you own a home, you have dependents, you have, I would definitely look for professional help.
Okay, great. So next, some of our families use ABLE accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So we may put either the individuals a little bit of their Social Security in an ABLE account, or we may put our own personal funds in an ABLE account. If we put our personal funds in an ABLE account, is that an allowable deduction, or is there anything to our advantage in that case?
Right. So the contributions are not deductible.
Okay.
However, the distributions and any interest that's earned on on the money that's put in is not taxable, which is great. We love non-taxed as long as it is used for, the disability purposes for which, that individual needs them. So, just like the education accounts, if you take the money out and you use it for something that's not related, then they're going to tax you. But if you need it for something related to the disability, then it's not taxable. So unfortunately, the contributions are not deductible, but you get the benefit of not having those funds taxed when you're, needing to use them.
Okay, that's really, really good to know. So you talked a little bit at the beginning about how strategic your approach is in terms of thinking about the future. You talked about your own family, and all of us are concerned about this as family members as well. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about that future planning process and how we might include an accountant as a part of that team?
Definitely. I would say it's something that you would want to do sooner than later, because every day is an opportunity for your money to be working for you, to be earning interest. And a lot of families, and I know this because as an educator, I didn't make a lot of money, and a lot of families are in that same situation. But educate, to educate yourself and to learn a little bit more about your financial status and how it doesn't matter your income level. There is some way that you can be saving and that your money can be earning interest and earning on itself so that your family can be in a better situation to set your child up for their future. And so, yes, I would say definitely involve an accountant, because that person can look and they can see exactly where you could be saving more money, where you could be, moving things around. And it may cost a little bit to have that analysis, but you're going to get so much more out of it, than what you put in. Because if they can sit with you and they can help you to look at your specific situation, that's the thing, everybody's situation is different. And they can give you some advice on how to structure things as you go through the year, then you're going to get the benefit on that. And with every day, you're going to get more of a benefit than you would if you would just let, years go by and you're not able to, capitalize on that. So I would definitely say reach out to someone. Doesn't have to be me. I do things at a discounted rate because I'm in the community and I love what I do and I love working with families and I get the benefit from doing that. But there are a lot of, trusted professionals out there who can help with that process. And I would say sooner rather than later. Even when you're going, if you have an accountant that you work with, talk to them about, what they can offer in the way of doing a little bit more with their services other than just doing your taxes for the year. It's something that is really vital for us guys. I have a passion for it because I see so many families, and I have other family members who have been older than me who had disabilities, and to kind of see the way that their situation went, I really wanted to create a different narrative for my son and for everybody else out there who is in our community. So, yeah.
So talk a little bit about just accountants at large in general. So tell me if this is correct or not. So I'm just going to use a metaphor of, say, in medicine, you go to a general practitioner, right? In account, and then you go to specialists.
Mm-hmm.
In accounting, is your average excellent accountant, are they going to have that, not that special needs disability knowledge?
Right.
Would they?
So, not
Possibly?
necessarily. No.
Okay.
So, there are a lot of different types of accountants. You have those who, you have forensic accountants, and that's their job to work with, really large agencies to look down deep into things and handle those audits and things like that. And then sometimes people get confused. You have some people who they're just tax preparers and it runs the gamut, as far as how much education a person has received in that area, and really what their interests are and what their preferences are as it relates to the work that they do for clients. So your average accountant is not going to be versed in special needs. It's just not something that they see a lot of. They don't, they're not going to have a lot of families who are necessarily coming to them for that purpose. So they can talk to you about deductions and credits and things of that nature that are common. And that's mostly what they're going to look for when they're speaking to you. When I'm doing it, because I am a special needs mom, those are things I'm looking for. I'm looking for those things specifically. In addition to, obviously I'm looking at all of the common things because I work with clients who are and who are not in the community. But in addition to that, I'm asking additional questions. Even on my questionnaire that I give to my clients, there's a section there that says special needs families, skip if this doesn't apply to you. And everybody in the field is going to be kind of similar. You're going to have other accountants who maybe they're in different, communities, and that's something that's a passion for them, and they may call those things out. So yeah, obviously they're not going to necessarily be aware of it, but if you have a trusted accountant that you work with and you love them, they can do it for you. You just need to have the knowledge to say, hey, I have this special needs child, and I heard, that there are specific deductions that can be taken for this. Do you mind doing a little research and, letting me know what other documentation I can provide to you so that I can take advantage of those things? And they should be willing to go down that road with you.
Great. Perfect. So since we are in tax season, I would be remiss if I did not ask if you had any additional either tips or common mistakes, things not to do during this time of year.
Yeah, I would say definitely don't go it alone. The other thing is consider everything, guys. Please, I cannot stress this enough. I have people who come to me and some of them have gotten, things done already. And then I'm asking them questions and they have missed a whole set of, thousands of dollars that they could have deducted that could have changed their situation a bit. So consider everything. I was working with a gentleman the other day, and we had come to kind of an end point, but I asked one question, and I think maybe he misunderstood previously, but he had a medically fragile child. And I had asked the question, he hadn't disclosed that previously. Asked the question about, if his wife was working, and he said, no, because she can't work because our child is medically fragile. And I said, you didn't tell me. I said, there's a whole, there are so many things that we can do with that. And so that led us down a different road. So I say that to say, consider everything. Consider everything. If it's not something that's applicable, your accountant will be able to tell you, yeah, we can't use that for whatever reason, but don't be shy, because that's where, the individual, they can't know how to help you and how to make sure that you're capitalizing on everything that you can, if they don't know, the completion of your situation.
So we are advocates in all situations, including with our taxes. Thank you so much for this conversation. And I will, of course, put your contact information in the description. And just know that, again, taxes are so individual. So this video is just general for education purposes only. And thank you so much. And if you'll stick around for just a second, I have another question for you. So you take good care. Thank you. As an accountant in the Metro Atlanta area, and